For so long in Canada, gun control has been so political. It's hard, I think, for the average person to distinguish between regulations for a political purpose and regulations for a public safety purpose.
So do you believe that gun control is going to have an impact on violent crimes?
Yeah, absolutely. At some point, it's going to have to. If you have higher control on who can own a weapon, it's going to decrease the amount of availability in the public. So it's going to have a big influence.
I mean, make it harder to get guns, and if there's fewer guns out in the world, that helps.
I don't think it's been effective enough.
I believe criminals don't go through the gun control process.
The gun is just a tool. It's up to the people to use it. So if we control the gun, and if the guy was to hurt someone, then he can grab a knife.
It's kind of like the whole drug thing. I mean, if you make drugs illegal, you're still going to get it. It's kind of one of those things that if criminals are willing to are really wanting it, they're going to find a way to get it.
I think that some gun control does have a beneficial effect on public safety, but it depends what it is. We have a licensing system in Canada, and what that licensing system addresses is, I think, three concerns that people have. Number one, that if you're going to buy firearms, you should have some kind of background check, and we have that in Canada in the licensing system. It's continuous every 24 hours for as long as you hold a license. We want to make sure that people that can buy firearms have to prove some kind of level of competency, because firearms can be dangerous. We also want to make sure, just as regular people, that if circumstances change and we think that someone can no longer be in legal possession of firearms, that there's some legal mechanism to take those firearms away. So all three of those concerns are addressed by the licensing system. So we are okay, our organization, with licensing, as long as it's done fairly and privacy is respected. Aside from that, then it gets pretty detailed.
Today, the government is adding a further 324 unique makes and models of assault-style firearms to the list of prohibited firearms in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately.
Do you agree with the measures that the government has taken regarding gun control recently?
Not the latest one that they've done, but before I didn't really mind about it.
I'm always pro more gun control. Ban them all.
I do agree with the intent of it. I'm not sure if it's going to work.
What do you think we can do to stop criminals from getting hurt?
I guess making it so there's a more rigorous process in getting a license.
It's too far gone. I don't think there's anything you can do. It's like drugs, man. Like, how are you supposed to stop drugs? It's just one of those things that communities are always going to have.
You improve the border and you facilitate the police to actually stop criminals from having it.
There was that incident in downtown a couple of days ago where the guys just started knifing everybody. Well, that's kind of scary because I always walk past the area and I cannot imagine what would have happened if he ended up with the gun. Like, I don't even want to think about that. So
I testified for the House and Senate committees for both Bill C-71 and Bill C-21. I had told the committee that I would be really happy if Stats Can started keeping track of how many licensed gun owners are involved in criminal activity at all, and then how many are involved in criminal activity with their firearms. Because that's important for us to know. If we have a problem with licensed gun owners in Canada, we need to know that, because then we would know how to regulate them better than they are now. But for some reason, it seems like the government is reluctant to keep numbers on that. And it's funny, here's the gun lobby asking for those numbers, right? Because at the end of the day, gun owners want a safer Canada too, because we're regular people. On the contrary, what we keep seeing is no data being kept on those things. It being assumed that licensed gun owners are responsible for all firearm-related violence, and then every law being pointed directly at licensed gun owners and doesn't change the lives or the behavior of criminals at all. That's a real problem, because if unlicensed criminals are 95% of the problem, if not 99%, then 95 or 99% of your laws and initiatives should go towards that problem. And it's the opposite. It's like 95% to licensed gun owners representing whatever, 5 or 3% of the problem. It's an issue. When criminals want to get access to firearms, they don't go to gun stores. They don't go and get a possession and acquisition license from the Canadian government, jump through all the hoops, get the background check. They simply go and find someone that is willing to either steal guns, which is a small number of firearms that are found in crime, or go to someone that can smuggle guns across the border by any different means, which is the overwhelming majority of guns found in crime. People keep asking me, what do we need to do? And it's funny because they keep putting it on the gun lobby to solve societal violence, right? But having said that, what I do always say is, if you have a problem with violence, you need to deal with violence, with or without firearms. So if you look at firearm-related violence as just violence, then look at the determinants of societal violence. So unemployment, socioeconomic issues, lack of hope, lack of accountability, criminal accountability. Look at the social determinants of violence, mitigate that as best as you can. And the benefit to that is not only are you going to solve firearm-related violence or whatever, right? Reduce it to its lowest possible level, but you're going to reduce all violence, and you're going to leave all of the people that haven't done anything to deserve, you're going to leave them alone. So we're not going to lose the culture, positive, long-standing gun culture in Canada. We're going to leave those people alone while dealing with our problems. And if you look at the culture around these things, it's beyond anything that these people can imagine. You're talking about 800 shooting clubs. To people that are members of it, it's a cultural center of their world. Their friends, like sport shooters, their friends are all gun people. Their acquaintances are gun people. Their whole community revolves around the clubs and the sports, and they hold game dinners, and they hold charity events. And all of that is under threat now more than ever. And that whole infrastructure, when people say, well, nobody needs an AR-15 or any of these guns, you don't need them, and your reasons are just frivolous. They're not frivolous. This is an important part of the Canadian social fabric.
Basically, it gets farmers and it gets recreational hunters, and it doesn't get criminals. So it's really, again, ATMing the ordinary citizens of Canada for a virtue signaling policy.